Hello, guys. Welcome to the show. Just gonna check over here and make sure that we are live on this. Yes, we are. All right, we are good to go. Gonna check over here and make sure that we are live on this. All right. So we kind of decided to jump in here early just to make sure that everything was working because last year we tried this with Becca and Brandy and we ended up being live on a different channel. So we are on all together. Happy Halloween to you guys at home. Thank you so much for joining us live. We are so excited. We're going to be delving into mediumship. And this hasn't been discussed yet or covered in season 2 this year in Good Witches. And I thought, what better way than on Halloween night live with 5 of my beautiful, witchy, internationally acclaimed medium, very gifted friends. This is my group. So for everyone tuning in live, this is my group of women. Thank you so much for being here. I can already just begin to feel all of this energy coming in so strong all around us right now. And I would just like to say, we are all coming from 5 time zones right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with Brandy because you're up top. Let's go around and introduce you guys. Introduce yourselves.
Okay. Hey, I'm Brandy Miller, psychic medium and healer. I am from New Orleans. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska right now, Central Time Zone. These are my witches, my sisters. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Abby.
Absolutely. Kim, you are up.
I am Kim Nichols. I am a psychic medium and healer also, and I am a psychic master, and I teach people how to live through their senses and be very present within their lives because it's so important.
I love that. Thank you so much. Becca, you are coming from the farthest time zone.
I'm coming from tomorrow. It was Halloween here yesterday, so I'm coming for the future. So I'm Becca Francis. I'm a human design coach and teacher. I'm a psychic medium, and I'm from the UK, but I've lived in Australia for 20 years. And I met all these beautiful people around this time last year. We were all together. So being here with you makes me kind of a bit emotional because it reminds me of the time when we were all together. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, we were all together over Zoom multiple times a week. So this is actually our normal, natural setting for all of us to be. We both work this way and hang out this way and chat this way. All right, Noelle.
I'm Noelle Manicam. I'm in Wisconsin. I am also a psychic, a medium, and a healer. And this is just my most favorite work of all. So thank you for having me, Abby.
Absolutely.
And ladies.
And Lisa.
Hello. I am Lisa Giannini. I too, with my sisters here, psychic, medium, a healer. I am a medical intuitive and started doing this work when the volume of all the psychic senses started going up and couldn't be ignored. So the powers that be had gathered me to a place where I met some more like-minded women that have similar gifts, and it has just only enhanced my own. And so currently I am doing readings for individuals and really honing more in on the medical side of things as well. But again, it's to piggyback Noelle, as someone who's been in the medical profession for many years, this by far, working at the spiritual level, the soul level, and helping people heal in this way is the best kind of work.
I love that. You know, I'm going to go ahead and just delve right into it. Sorry, I'm going to turn this light down. It's like blowing out. I have very green eyes and I have like no filter on them. And I will sometimes look back at my podcast and I'm like blinking because my eyes are burning out of my skull with these ring cameras. I would love to talk about medical mediumship because it's so valuable. I mean, when you are working with a client and you're right there, and I mean, and Lisa, I mean, Noelle, you are a medical medium, and Lisa, you have all those decades of background, but there's such a stigma that comes with it that I've noticed. How do you guys, deal with that in your practices?
Go ahead, Lisa. You can start.
Well, to digress just a moment, really, as someone that was working in the medical industry for is the length of time that I have, when I started to notice I was picking up things, I wasn't fully aware in the beginning that that wasn't something that all medical people were doing. Um, so it's sort of like what they call the nurse's instinct, or that sort of medical instinct that certain people that start working with patients over a period of time start to kind of fine tune and enhance. But for me, I was actually, there would be situations, and this still happens, where maybe something that someone had, I would actually feel it in my own body. So when things like that started to happen more frequently, and I started to have conversations about it with people, that's when I realized, oh, this is different. Not everyone is having this experience that's in the medical field. So I had to learn how to discern the difference. And with that, there comes a lot of responsibility, integrity, doing healing work and doing spiritual work to even discern what you can do that you might be intuiting medically versus really advising someone to follow up with a professional medical provider. So again, if I'm sensing something, or if I'm picking up something intuitively from someone, or if I'm feeling it in my own body, it's certainly by no means the method for diagnosis. It's not, that wouldn't be appropriate or fair at all. But again, it can give people direction to sort of hone in on something that they themselves might actually be aware of, because often people are aware that something is a little bit off, and you're just bringing it more to their attention. But it can be a very fine line, a very slippery slope at times. But I think if you are working with integrity and you're putting your best foot forward, learning how to discern those differences can not only be valuable, but again, it allows people to continue to respect the work of healers like ourselves, on top of the work that trained medical professionals are doing. And really, what I love, I get excited, I start smiling, is when the two complement one another. To me, that is really where I would love to see healing going in the future.
I love that. Noelle?
So my medical intuition started out much differently, but it really started when my youngest son got sick, and nobody could figure out how to help him. And the medical community is like, we just don't know. And I had my toes in spirituality, and he started leaving his body due to pain, and he would go to the other side. And so when you hear the stories about how, oh, I was listening to you from the corner of the room and I could see everything going on, and he started having all of these stories where he would float up by a cord, right? And then I'm like, and I used to test him because he was 8 at the time. And I'd be like, did you ever go through a tunnel of light? And he was like, I did. And I'd say, what happened? And he said, well, when I go through the light, they make me come back. And he goes, I can't stay over there. So long story short, I really didn't know how to help him. And Spirit just started dropping things in my lap. And because Carson became so connected to Spirit, I mean, I used to just cry, and I'd be like, I don't know how to help you. And he'd be like, Mom, that's the right thing. They're saying it's the right thing. And then he started getting better. And then the rest of my family got hit with a bunch of illnesses. I did, we had cancer, we had anxiety, we had panic, digestive issues, you name it. And well, I was the one that was hit with all of that. So I know the feeling, what it feels like to have all of those things running through your body. And I just learned more and more and more everything that I could. And then when I was working with clients, I would get these same feelings in my body. And I would say, does this make sense to you? Like, I'm feeling this. And they'd be like, how do you know? And it, like, well, because, I went through it. And so it's a little bit more comforting to a client when you can say, I know because I felt that, or I know because I went through that. And so they understand where you're coming from and just not making stuff up. But I think the toughest thing for me is when people come to me and they're like, do I have cancer? Like, that's a hard one, Lisa. I'm sure that is like one of the hardest things to answer. And I never give a diagnosis, never, never, never. But go to the doctor. If you feel uneasy, then I'm going to encourage you to go to the doctor because your body knows and right? But yeah, intuition is great. I love it.
I love it. So speaking of, medical intuition, so I want all of us as mediums, because we experience so many different things in this field. I would love to it's reminding me of the story of an experience that I had, and I want y'all to share some of the experiences you have of just, when you're tapped into living spirit, you don't always know when they're going to come up around you and share their story with you. So I was at a pretty major hospital, and I was accompanying my mother for an appointment. And so we're just, sitting in the waiting room, and it was just a very basic, generic checkup. And we're just sitting there. And when you do this work, you start to key into what is pulling your attention that normally probably wouldn't be. So I'm sitting there, and I just hear this drip, drip, drip in the sink in the waiting room, in our observation room. And I looked over that. I'm like, why am I so focused on that drip? And it got louder. And then so then the physician came in, and she's, talking with my mother. Actually, it was the nurse talking with my mother, to the point where the drip was amplified by 50. So I interrupted the nurse and I said, can I just ask you, how long has that been dripping? And she said, oh my gosh. She goes, and wouldn't you believe it? We had all of the plumbing fixed last week. They had to replace every single sink on this entire floor. And as she's explaining this to me, this female woman in her early 50s appeared to be, walked in, and she looks at me and she goes, and they're always going to break.
That's awesome.
So then, I let them do their thing. And so then I'm talking with this woman, and she said, yeah, and at this point, I am now floating above her body. I'm seeing her in surgery. I'm seeing they're doing heart surgery on her. And they showed me there was two physicians, and one handed a small little scalpel over, and it was there was an accidental nick on one of the veins, and then I saw all of this blood coming in. And then I'm snapped back out of it, and I'm back in the room, and she's standing there now, and she looks at me and she said, they know exactly what they did. And they lied to my family about what happened to me in that surgery. And she said, and until they tell my family the truth, I am going to flood this entire hospital just like they flooded my body.
Wow. That's crazy. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at her, I asked her, I said, this is really what we want to be spending our time doing, instead of moving on. And she said, nope, I'm here until they tell my family the truth. And she's a stubborn broad. And I said, okay. And then I just joked with the nurse, and I looked at her, I said, yeah, that's never going to get fixed.
And when I said I love that, I didn't mean that I love that she got nicked and, died. I liked her sass still. She was still holding her sass at the end. And she's like, no, it's going to keep happening because they did it to me. So I'm going to do it to them in another way.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention, the nurse said that it was their entire floor of the hospital and the top floor above them in the whole hospital. And she said the top floor is all with heart surgeries. So yeah, she was getting at least 2 floors that I knew of. So I
Wow.
mean, this is sometimes, so I'm sitting here having this conversation with this woman while this nurse is, having her appointment with my mom, and I just have to, smile and nod. And I would love to hear any of your others. Like, have y'all had experiences like this where you're getting information? Yes,
I
Kim.
have I have some. I when I do mediumship readings, my gift is to know how the person passed. That's the only time that I really feel it in my body. The other times, I feel like it's my clairsentience kicking in because I really work hard with my senses. So that's what I call it. It could be intuition, I don't know. But um, I do feel other people's pain. But man, when I'm doing a mediumship reading, oh my goodness. I'll give you an example. I was doing a reading for one gal and I said I see him standing on the edge of a mountain, of a cliff. And I said, that sounds so strange to me. She goes, keep going. And I said, okay. And I said, he's standing there. There's someone else. I said, oh my God. I literally felt like I was falling off the cliff. I felt that in your stomach where you feel like you're flying, but I mean, you kind of are, but it's just that feeling. And I said, oh my gosh, he just fell down the cliff. She said that's literally how he died
Mm.
because he got a flat tire. Some guy came over to help him, and something happened. Nothing happened between the two men. Just her husband lost his footing because he was so close to the edge, and he literally just fell off the side of a mountain. So that was really, really interesting. Um, and I had another one where I pictured this gal in a car, and I said she feels drugged. I can feel when someone has been drugged or if they've OD'd on, drugs or things like that. If they're not in their clear mind, I can feel that in my body. And I said, she's in a car. She doesn't want to be in the car. And I said, oh my gosh, the door just flew open and she fell out of the car. I said, does that make sense to you? She goes, that's exactly what happened. She was trying to escape these two men that had her in the car that drugged her. She was trying to escape on the freeway. She opened the door and fell out and she died. So really interesting how I can just see it. I'm very clairvoyant. I can see it and I can feel it. I can feel like the asphalt, like I can feel where it happened and it's just so wild to me. But I think it's really interesting that we all feel different things in different ways at different times. And that's why we all have such amazing gifts because we all have clairsentience, perhaps I would guess that we all do. Um, some kind of medical intuition, some kind of physical feeling in our body when we pick it up with our coworkers or our clients or our family members or something like that. um, we all pick up other people's stuff. And that's why I love working with energy so much because we are so connected that that's we pick up so many different things. And that's why I love energy. I love that. And just how connected we all are. And we share it. We share those gifts with each other without even knowing, like without even talking about it. I feel like, you know, we don't even have to talk about it. We can just say, I'm thinking of my friend. I know she's not feeling well. I'm just going to send her some healing energy because she's given me the go, in the past. So I know that she would be okay with it. And that's just beautiful. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Anybody else would like to share any experience? Brandy, you just got done. So you, in the past week, you just did a platform mediumship in front of 40 people.
Yeah. And then I had the day before, I had about 25 one-on-ones with tarot, which was like, I haven't done like the rapid tarot or oracle card in a while. And I'm like, oh my God, I missed that. It was just so much fun because it was like one after another. But yeah, I had a gallery at a vineyard recently, which was fabulous. The one I was going to share two different things. One is very quick, and then the other is mediumship. I'll do the mediumship first to see how long that is, and then we'll see, because the other one deals with someone physically here and their higher self coming to me and me physically feeling them. So the first one, I was in New Orleans. I was maybe 3 years into doing mediumship. So I'm still like, learning all the boundaries and the rules and, learning how to work with spirit. And I was working with some police officers in Mississippi, and I wanted to do the same in New Orleans, doing missing person cases, cold cases. So I told the head of this department, which I'm not going to say what it is, but the head of this department with NOPD, I would really like to give you your own experience if you're going to be working with me. He already believed, but I'm like, you don't know how I work, so I would like to do that. So it was set up for the next week. And it was set up for Wednesday. Monday of that week, I'm sitting in a cafe and I'm completely fine, like minding my freaking business. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I am sick as could be. I am sick. My entire body hurt. I was like dizzy, nauseated. My neck was killing me. Like I looked at the barista who I knew, and she's like, you look like you're white as a ghost. I'm like, I have the flu. Like, I'm done. So I went home and I slept for like 5 hours, really thinking I had some type of flu. And I woke up and I was completely fine. And I'm like, okay, spirit. I see you, not physically see, but like, okay, now it took me that much time to recognize it wasn't mine. Mm-hmm. Because when we feel things, it feels like we have that. It feels like it's happening to us very, very viscerally. Yeah. And sometimes still, even though I've been in the game for 10 years, I still have a hard time deciphering. So I was like, okay, spirit, I have no clients today. I do not want to feel this again. In fact, if you make me feel this before the client is sitting in front of me, I will never, ever speak for you again, like, period. And so I said, the day your client's there, you can come to me, make me feel it. I said, but you're going to have to be the last spirit to come to me. I said, you can make me feel it again, but once I acknowledge you, you got to let go. And so sure enough, that Wednesday, it was the person from NOPD, and he sat in front of me, and I brought through like 6 people. At the very end, I am sick. My neck is killing me. And I'm like, okay, I got you. And it ended up being his partner, who just passed, not weeks before, of cancer that spread throughout his entire body, and he had big tumors all over his neck. And he came in like a force to be reckoned with. Like, his spirit was so strong. He wasn't like a force to be reckoned with really in life. He was more reserved, but could be tough when he needed to. And he needed his partner to know 100% that this is real, that I have the, everything that happened to him medically, and then also all the little things they did to tell each other as partners, like little secrets that nobody else really knew because they spent so much time together, and that he was really okay. And so I always go back to that experience as being one of my most physical, factual evidence type things that happened well before the session ever came to be. And so I don't know. I always go back to that because if I think about it, I can actually still feel it, which is really freaking cool. So the other really quick one is about my son and his higher self. When I was going through a really tough period a few years ago, it was in the morning and I was half asleep half awake, and I heard him running up the stairs. I heard the door slam, and then I felt him lay over me, like protecting me. And so I went to do this, like, oh my gosh, like I want to protect him even though he's protecting me, and he wasn't there. And when I did that, I'm like, oh my God, it's his higher self. His higher self is trying to like work with my spirit to kind of get me out of where I was, So it was one of the most real feelings that I have felt working in this area.
That's
I love
insane.
that.
Sorry, I'm getting feedback from somebody. Who else would like to go and share? Becca, do you have anything that you would like to share?
Well, first of all, sorry for the big dog nose that came in to the video. He's brand new and he's like still trying to feel his way. So probably when we were all doing our training together and we were doing reading after reading after reading, I remember one time in particular, I had a day full of readings and I was getting ready in the bathroom and I was putting my makeup on. And my husband came and stood in the doorway and leant up against the doorway. And I kind of did a double take, but it wasn't my husband. He wasn't even there because he leaves early to this particular day, left early for a meeting. And it was just this guy who was just leant up against the bathroom door, kind of just stood there. He wasn't, there was no kind of strange feelings or odd feelings, but it was really, really clear. And he turned up in one of these readings later on in the day, probably the second or third reading. But I guess all that to say, the more that you do it and the more that you connect in, for me, the more I tend to see spirit. Like they'll appear around, like I'll see them kind of in a doorway or kind of sat next to me. Or I was at a family wedding a few weeks ago, and somebody walked. There was nobody in the gardens, and somebody walked kind of from one side to another. So I find when there's a lot of people around, or when I'm connecting in consistently, it's as though that veil is much thinner and they're much closer and then much more around.
Yeah. I was, when I just doing this work, when I go out and about, and I know that all of you guys do as well. Goes down. I really don't want to be interacting with spirit all the time, because it's draining. But so when they actually do come through, they kind of had to come through in a very strong, big way. And I was eating dinner with my sisters. I was up in Ohio, and they've never really seen a whole lot of this work with me, but I'm sitting there and I noticed the light fixture above our table just starts like swaying. And so I looked up, I'm like, huh. And I, of course, I logically go and make sure, are there any other light fixtures swaying? Is there a fan I'm missing? Nope. Just above me, this big metal light fixture swaying. So then I'm like, okay. So I just briefly tap in. Boop. There's a male standing there. And he walks over to a twosome table, and he points at them, and he's like, I need to talk to them. And so I'm like, I'm not going, like, no, I'm having dinner with my family. I'm not going to just approach them and say, oh, hey, there's somebody here. That's not how I roll. And then he walked over to my table. He said, no, I have to speak to them. They have to hear from me. And I said, no, I'm so sorry. That's not how I work. Then he proceeded to then make me feel in my physical body how he passed. So my whole chest starts getting really, really tight. My heart is feeling like it's being squeezed. And that's when I go, so like, I'm just, doing this because I'm talking to him like, back up, back up, back up, back up. Like, I don't want to feel this. And that's when my older sister looked at me and she said, are you okay? And I said, oh, there's a spirit here who's trying to get my attention. And she goes, is he making our light fixture sway up ahead? I said, yep.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
But yeah, I didn't do the reading. I wasn't going to connect in with him. I had to, politely ask him, please back up. I'm at family dinner. So that's probably the only, I guess, the side effects of doing this work. Like Becca said, like the more you're in this energy and the more the work you're doing, that they will begin to just pop up. And sometimes you don't always know when they're going to kind of be able to break through our boundaries. So have you guys ever had, Lisa, is there a story that you want to share?
Yeah, I was actually, I've noticed, I call them, I think all of us have a term for it, like the spiritual dive bombs, like when they just drop in unexpectedly. It's not intentional. You're not sitting down to do a reading for someone. And personally, I've actually noticed, and I don't know if it's because I've learned to create better boundaries for myself when I'm out and about. But I've noticed actually had a couple of experiences where when a soul is kind of just showing up right there, it's usually when it's someone I know, or I'm with someone that I know and it's a message for them. So I have not really had much experience when I'm just out and about. But again, I think that's just because of my boundaries. Certainly, I'm very aware of when I feel things, and in terms of like, I can feel a shift in the energy, which I'm sure most of everyone here does. I actually was in just running some errands last week, and I was in a card aisle at the store. And as I was walking down the aisle, I was like taken aback. I was perfectly fine walking down the aisle. And then I crossed paths with another woman that was in the aisle, and I was just taken aback. And essentially I was like, ooh, like there's something coming off of that woman, and it just didn't feel right. And so I just walked quickly away. But in hindsight, I actually think there was someone with her that I was actually picking up, but I tried to really tune it out. When I've had some, like a dive bomb, this actually happened recently. And I think Abby, you and I might have had a conversation about it, which was actually a beautiful lesson. I was sitting at home. A friend of mine was here. We weren't currently engaged in any kind of conversation, or I was sort of on my phone doing their thing, and they were on, watching the TV. There was nothing going on in the moment between us. And all of a sudden I kept smelling smoke, like out of nowhere. I was like, I smell smoke. No candles were burning, nothing was on the stove, but I could distinctly smell cigarette smoke. And so as soon as you get these little hits that sometimes are so vivid or so specific, I think with the practice, or once we've started working with the energies, you start to realize, okay, like I've got close to something or someone. And so you either kind of tune in, lean in, or you distance yourself. And this is one of those scenarios where I was like, someone's here. And as soon as I asked the question, or as soon as I recognized the energy, then it started moving even more. And certainly I could sense kind of who I thought maybe it was, not because my mind was telling me, because they kept showing me these images. And essentially it was, they were smoking incessantly, and I could see what they were smoking. And I kept hearing this woman's voice, and it's like this, what we call, it's just a knowing. It's a knowing that drops in that you don't question. And I asked my friend, I said, did your grandmother smoke a lot of cigarettes? And out of the blue, they're like, yeah, why are you asking me that? And this was one of those instances too. I tend to lean in. I don't typically just barrage someone with information as they're coming in, but I tend to ask. And in that particular scenario, it actually just seemed okay. It seemed appropriate. This person actually does know what I do as well, but they had never been at the receiving end of actually getting any kind of messages like this. And so as soon as I asked them if their grandmother smoked, and they said yes. And I said, they smoked Virginia Slims, yes? And they were like, yeah, like, this is odd. Why do you keep asking me this? And so she just proceeded to give me information. And she also mentioned something about a snow globe. And I said, is there something related to a snow globe that you would understand? At that point, they were like, what is going on? Like, what's going on here? And they were like, yes, my mother just gave me a snow globe yesterday randomly as a gag gift. Like, why are you bringing this up? Well, this would have been that person's mother. So the grandmother that was in spirit was referring to the snow globe that her daughter had given this person as well. So, you know, I was able to validate some messages. She basically was there to say hello, say thank you for the things that they had done. And just, you know, kind of show up and give them a hug and say I love you and thank you. And I did notice she had someone else with her, which again, this was someone in spirit that they were very close with, and my friend was actually able to validate. But what was really interesting is once this sort of exchange was over, you know, I thanked her. I thanked her internally, and I said, you know, okay, please step back to where it is you're stepping in from. Like, you know, you mind your dance space, and we're going to mind our dance space. But the beauty in the lesson was, and I still get chills when I think about it. Within 24 hours of her showing up in the space just to kind of drop in and say hello, her adult son passed within 24 hours. And the lesson in that for me was, you know, we hear that spirit tends to draw in at certain times when the veil is thin and things like that. But we've heard that they tend to draw in to sort of hold vigil when they know a loved one is ready to cross over. And this particular loved one had been ill for quite some time, years, in fact. And here she was showing up to receive him, because I wouldn't have known that her son was going to pass the next day. It was just quote unquote coincidental. But I thought to myself, they were already gathering to receive him. And so not only was it just a beautiful moment for, you know, my friend to kind of receive a thank you and receive a message from their grandmother, but knowing within 24 hours when then they lost their uncle, that the loved ones that were on their other side were already showing up to receive them. So that one really stands out to me, because I guess it was a little bit more personal because it was someone that I knew. But it really is just like Kim was saying, you know, we're all so interconnected. And when we move into spirit, you know, the essence of who we are, it's just a different version of who we are. It's just a different way of existing out of, you know, this physical element back into just a pure energetic element. And, you know, energy cannot be destroyed. And so it really was just such a beautiful indication to me, and a healing way of for me to even keep thinking moving forward that, you know, our loved ones are continue to be around us all the time, and will even come in close when we're being challenged. And so learning to kind of, even if you're not a psychic or a medium, just learning to trust your knowing and your intuition that there are things, there are loved ones, there is love and light around us, that it's so much bigger than just us and our physical bodies that we can lean into to gain support and healing and comfort. So it was really just a beautiful, beautiful lesson for me. And so I still thank her. I still thank her to today. Thank you for teaching me that you do come in close, because now I pay more attention to that. I'm more mindful of it because of what she did for me.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. I'm going to pivot a minute. So Zach has asked an amazing question, and I actually think it's very, very timely. He asks, what techniques do all of us have for protecting ourselves in the astral? And this is something that we, you know, the show on Tuesday that just aired 2 days ago with Laura Van Tyne, it was all about the spiritual war that we're in the middle of. And we're in the middle of fighting an astral war right now. And, you know, when you have people like all of these beautiful ladies here this evening, when you have people that are awakening and our energy fields are expanding, our awareness is expanding, our light is expanding, we are going to attract a lot of lower density, lower dimensional entities, energy vampires, like whatever you want to label this. It's very real. And lately, the attacks in the astral planes have reached a much heightened level because we've been dealing with this more advanced level of entities. Noelle and I have had a lot of conversations about these. But I would love for you guys to share for Zach. Zach, thank you so much. It's an amazing, amazing question. What do you guys do to protect yourself? And when Zach's asking into the astral plane, right? So when we fall asleep at night, I always say we're just checking out from one day of work to another day of work, right? There's no such thing as ever shutting off. We're existing in another plane. So, what do we do to protect ourselves in that space? Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay. Okay.
Zach, and this is something that actually, when I was working on going out into the astral more and working with the different entities out there, my youngest son that I was talking about before, he's totally tapped in. He comes down to me, he says, "You need a new shield." And I said, "A what?" He's like, "Before you lay down," I have an Opus bed. He goes, "Before you lay down on that Opus bed, you need a shield. They are telling me." And I said, "What kind of shield? And what are you talking about? What do you mean? What kind of shield?" And so he said it needs to have so many sides, right? It's not just a triangle or a hexagon or he's like, create something that is specific to you that has a lot of sides and have it like rotate. Well, like mine, it rotates in all directions, and then he said, "You have to be the shield." I said, "What do you mean, be the shield?" He said, "You have to have a sense of self, but you also have to be part of that shield." And so I create the shield, I spin the shield, I touch into the shield, and part of me becomes that shield, and I still have my sense of self. Now, every night before I go to bed, I spin my shield. And I have woken up, I don't know about you guys, but you know how like sometimes in the middle of the night, you wake up, you don't open your eyes, but you are awake in your mind. And I'm very visual. And so in my mind, I could see three beings trying to figure out how to get into my shield, in which I then laughed, I reinforced, I kept spinning my shield. And that has been probably the biggest thing that I could have come upon and learn thanks to my son and done, because it's big. So right now, everything that keeps coming through is you need to be. It's not depending upon everything externally, because you need to know you and be part of everything as well. And that's where you're going to find your strength.
I love that. I love that. And I call in in the astral, I call in working with my whole self, my whole being, not just this Abby incarnation, but everything I ever have been. And I find when I do that, the layer of light that then exudes and comes out from that space is greater. And I have also, because I made a post a few weeks ago to pay attention to the dreams. And it's almost like this has happened to me a couple times, like in the movie Divergent, where she has this moment where she's realizing things aren't connecting, and she just stops and she said, "This isn't real." And the entire illusion breaks down. So I have had that moment in two different times where just one little thing was off. I remember they had put me in a very comfortable setting, and I was back in my childhood home. I was back in my childhood kitchen. I was there where I felt very safe and comforted. And I'm there looking at my kitchen counters and everything. And then I noticed there was this dog that was sitting out at my back deck door. And the dog was asking, like it wanted to come into the home. And as I reached for the door to open it and welcome it in, it just hit me. We never let our dogs out this back door because they can't get into the yard because we were 3 stories up. Like there was I never allowed a dog out there. And the minute I stepped back and I said, this isn't right, we would never have a dog here, the dog became a completely different being. And the whole background of being in my childhood home completely changed. And then I was essentially going to battle with this darker entity. So, and in those moments, I call on, the whole self. I call in archangels to come in and help me. I call in Yeshua, the light of Yeshua to come in and help me and aid in those moments as well. I always have frankincense in my bed. I even shield the podcast with frankincense. So those are some of the things that I've been doing. And the shield came in a few months ago. Now, what they explained to me was, as more of us are awakening and our light is becoming just brighter and expanding, we're just so, they said, you guys don't realize how yummy delicious you are, how good your light feels. And so they said your shields need to be 5 feet up and 3 feet down into the ground. And they said, and when you put it down into the ground, at the base of that shield, imagine it being like a USB cord, like you're hooking into that energy there. And that's what that is what is powering up this boom, 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 boom. And the shield went really, really wide. And they said, you need to be doing this all the time now, because there are more and more these little energy vampires, these little entities that are just trying to come and, fuck on you. But Laura Van Tyne made a very good point, because I was explaining this to her and she goes, well, what about the back of you? Like, you're covered if you're just doing it in the front, but what about up above and back behind? And so, Noelle, with your spinning, that makes complete and total sense. So spinning that shield around.
Yeah, it needs to be a 360. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else to add? Brandy?
Yeah, I just want to add that I feel like, Zach, our shields and our knowledge of what we need to do to protect ourselves here and now and in the astral is like changing and growing over time. Because when I first started mediumship and had myself in a little bubble of light and had everything bouncing off of it, that no longer works. It really helps to have people that are also intuitive in some type of way, because these ladies have absolutely taught me things about how to protect and cleanse my energy, as well as I have with them. When certain circumstances have arisen, we've like navigated it together. Okay, this is what we need to do. So I feel like on the most part, I work with like the archangels and the ascended masters, and I feel like they have really had my back, but it doesn't, my back, so to speak, had me protected, in the astral. But things have absolutely crept in, so that's when you do the cleanse, the calling back of your energy, the cutting of cords, using the frankincense, using tourmaline or some other stone that is really like going to pull out the negativity, purify you, kind of mirror back that negativity. And then, like I said, these ladies have absolutely given me additional ways that I have worked with and then formed into my own. So I think it's a very personal thing that you can listen to all of us and say, okay, yeah, that works for me. I don't resonate with that. I'm going to try that. And I think I'll add a little dragon in the mix too. You know what I'm saying? And so like, we're all about dragons here. We love them. And so I think it's just really knowing your energy, what that feels like within your own being, and then working from there. Does it feel off? Does it feel like something's stuck? Cleanse. Add some type of protective layer, and then just kind of play with it and work with someone else that's of the same frequency to help you out. I feel like that's really been such a blessing here.
I love that. I love that, Brandy. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to say, oh, Kim, sorry, go ahead. Next, I want to talk about,
It's up to you. I just wanted to add, just sprinkle in a little something, be real quick. I just wanted to say that, Brandy and Noelle and Abby, like everything that you guys were saying, I have a little piece of all of that, and I use a little piece of all of that. And what I was going to say is, what I rely on is calling in my angels and my higher self, and I give my higher self all the confidence in the world. It's like I'm untouchable when I'm out there. And my higher self is just, like you said, Abby, like radiating light, like the energy light. Boo, 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 boo. That's what I feel like. I'm like, all right, girl, get to work because you know what to do. And I feel like that's a huge thing. I'm not paranoid about, oh, I have, because a lot of people, none of us here, I don't think, but a lot of people do like prayers, and they're constantly like, you know, just trying to like keep everyone out instead of just putting up that shield and letting it just happen. You know what I mean? Putting up that shield and just knowing that it's going to rotate around you. Or for me, calling on my angels to surround me with white light and love, keeping all negative energy out. Just let them do their job. I've done this for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's working. Once in a while you get a little sneak attack and you're like, hey, get out of here, But other than that, it's like you, and also this is a huge thing, is staying connected at the highest vibration possible at all times. That is huge for me personally. If I get low vibe, that's when things start sneaking in. So I always call in to spirit to keep me connected at the highest vibration possible. I do it every morning. And then before I go to sleep, I shut down, and that's where I create my boundaries. And I thank everyone for, doing their job for me today and continuing that job throughout the night. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then I'm good most nights. Sometimes you get like a weird, I don't know, spirit thing or something else, that sneaks in. But other than that, I have slept like a baby. So if you, my advice is just to put it, let someone else do the job for you, and just have that confidence that they're going to do it, because they do it. They listen, they hear you, they want to help you, they want you to succeed, and they want you to stay at that higher vibration, because when we are, then we're help elevating the earth's vibration. We are ripple affecting out. We're connecting with other people, and I feel like that's my job here. I feel like that's all of our jobs, is to raise the vibration of the earth and more, and that's just so important to me. So I just wanted to add that. And Brandy, you said tourmaline or tourmaline. I have a piece of it on either side of our bed, like on each end table. So we have a block of that. But other than that, it's pretty chill at our house.
Yeah. So when you were talking about, Kim, about, you sleep like a baby and you sleep so well, it reminded me of a story, and this is in regards to, kind of going back to dealing with spirit. But sometimes when people go into, this is a haunted hotel and there's a lot of spirit activity in here, and they might go into a place of fear, or like, I'm going to block all of it out. So I went to Lildale, and it was when we all met in person, and I ended up booking 2 nights in, at the time I didn't realize, was the oldest place, and it was the most haunted in Lilydale. And so everyone had been warning me about this, like, you're going to get no sleep. They're going to keep you up all night, blah, blah, blah. So I'm marching there like, I'm going to block them. I'm going to shield them and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to, don't come near my room. So I walk in and I see this woman in spirit. She's still embodying her entire life from the time she passed. And I see her, she was literally fluffing pillows up at one of the couches back near my room. And I immediately shifted. And I actually went to her and I said, thank you for welcoming me into your home. I know that you are going to be a beautiful host, and I know that I'm going to get the best night's sleep in your home. Thank you so much for having me. and I slept like a baby that night. So, when you realize spirit, especially if they're coming to you and they're still in their period clothes, they're still embodying that life. That is living, genuine spirit. She doesn't realize that it was 2023. She's still living in the early 1800s. Like, she is still living that, and she is still the Airbnb or the inn owner. And so when I addressed her as such, and I put her back in what she was doing, fluffing the pillows and making sure everything was nice, then I was her guest for the evening, and she could clean up all the spirit stuff.
Yeah, and when you're talking, it's because you set that intention.
Mhm.
I'm gonna sleep great tonight. Thank you so much. You put it in there, you put it out there, you gave it to her. Um, you set that intention. Some people like me, if I were to stay with you that night, which I was supposed to, but I ended up staying with Brandy because of my flight got screwed up. But if I were to stay with Abby, I would not go in with that intention. I would go in with the intention of, oh my gosh, what are we in for? I'm not sleeping a wink, I would have that vibe all night.
We did. Do you remember in the glass house? That's what
Well,
we did. Our
I
house
know.
was super freaking haunted, and we were both
Yes.
like awake the entire night. We didn't have Abby's like, oh, just
We
talk
didn't
to them, go back into their period, and say thank you for having me, murderers, in your room.
That was awful. I know. So I'm grateful. I'm like, good. I don't have to sleep with Abby in her haunted house. And then I go stay at Brandy's hotel, the one that we stayed in, and I wake up to my bed literally being shook by a ghost or a spirit, and I'm like, oh, it's probably just Brandy like getting up, whatever. And I look over and she's like totally sleeping, and I'm like, get out of here. I was mad. I was like, not tonight. I'm not playing tonight. So I did change my attitude about it. I was like, I'm not playing with you tonight. So you need to go find somewhere else to go. And you bump the bed. I know it was a male. Bump the bed one more time just because he's like, oh yeah, well, and I was like, go. And then it was fine. But I was kind of freaked out. I slept there like this for a little bit.
We had all kinds of weirdness in that room, and I also
Yeah.
stayed there the night before without sleep. So now that I had a bodyguard, Kim, thank you very much, I could actually get. But it was a little bit of a mess. We also smelled a lot in that room. You remember?
We smelled things. We heard voices coming out of the floor, and the
handprint on the mirror, like weirdly
Oh,
behind the bed.
fun. I can't wait to go back. Let's go.
It was
With
actually
all our friends. That was fun. But I was just going to say the intention of going in, Abby, you were very calm, cool, collected. You set the tone. You set the intention of, I am going to sleep very good tonight. Thank you so much for being here and being such a great hostess. And you went to sleep and you slept like a baby.
Yeah.
And me and Brady were chewing our nails and we didn't get to sleep till super late. And then I woke up to the bed shaking and then I was mad at that point. And then I slept pretty good, but I only got like 4 hours of sleep. So
See, this is a learning moment, guys. Zach, if you're still watching,
Yeah.
you learned from Abby, hey, maybe don't go in like chickens. Maybe talk to them, have a conversation. They're actually living spirit. They're living like we are, and we're being afraid of them.
They really are. They really are. They're
Yeah.
just people that you can't see, honestly.
Yeah. So next time, be nice to the murderer.
Fine, whatever. We'll
Our
see.
lock handle was broken. There were so many things. So many
Oh,
things.
so many things. So many things.
Oh my gosh. Becca, we have not heard from you for a while. I know that you have all kinds of things to share.
I guess pretty simple strategies like Kim. I found that the more readings I did, the more visitations that I would get at night. And I would get spirit after spirit after spirit, just as I closed my eyes, just appearing and appearing and appearing. And I just said, no, not tonight. And I still use that when that happens. I'm just like, no, I'm not. Like, the shop is shut. Not tonight. I want to get a good night's sleep. But I remember a couple of strategies that, I think you guys helped me with. I can't quite remember how they came about, but I have 2 spirit dogs, 2 enormous spirit dogs who look a bit like Dobermans. I have Nero and Brutus, and they sit one either side of me on the bed, and they're enormous. So they're there every night, and Archangel Michael in the corner of the room, like from floor to ceiling. Like I make him as big as I possibly can. And that's helped. And I have the tourmaline next to the bed. Like my husband has one and I have one. Because the more I've learned how to do this, the more sensitive he's become. And he's started to feel things and see things in the bedroom. So I kind of, there's a pile of crystals next to his side of the bed. But I agree with Kim. I just keep it really simple and then go about my day. But having said that, the techniques that you guys have been talking about today, I'm sure use, because you know how it gets into your consciousness. And when I go to bed tonight, I'll be like, particularly, can I just say, I am here on my own. It's just me and Elvis, the dog. My husband's away. And I see this TikTok yesterday about this potential serial killer in the next state to me. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. It's not the place for that. But anyway, last night I did ask Archangel Michael to come right in and stand over the door because it scared me to death.
That's awful. That's scary.
Yeah, it was. So why did I have to watch this right now? So yeah. So I just keep it pretty simple.
Yeah. I mean, I do have to admit that I sometimes don't realize how much my husband actually offers a layer of protection, because when he travels, I have to put up an extra layer, and I never forget the first night he's out of town. Right. So then that's the night where I'm like, so, the next night, like, okay, I gotta, cause they figure it out. They know it.
That happened last night, actually. I've just remembered, just as you said that, because Elvis sleeps in a crate in our wardrobe because he feels safe in there. And I woke up, like, as Noelle was saying, like half awake, half asleep. And there was something on top of his crate. And I've just remembered now you said that. And I don't think it was, it didn't feel ominous or weird or scary. But there was definitely something. And it was almost like kind of dancing about on top of the crate. And so I asked it to leave and I went back to sleep. But I've only just remembered that. Now you've said it. And it was the first night my husband was out of town last night.
I had something a few months back that was kind of flitting around, and it wasn't like a human, it wasn't embodying anything, but it was just this thing. And it came up to the end of my bed, and it was the middle of the night, and I woke up and I just saw it. I'm like, get out. Like, no. And it went, and it went really fast, but yeah.
Dog.
The looky loos.
What'd you say?
I call those the looky loos.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, Becca, you named your dog Elvis, and then you like poo his little dancing fairy. Literally, it's so good. He's got a wardrobe. He's got a cool, setup, and he's got some. I'm sure there's some music going on top of the crate. Like protector.
What do you think? Yeah, he agrees. He's like, yeah. Brandy's got it. His full name is actually Elvis Aaron Presley Francis. My husband made me put that on his dog registration.
I love it.
I absolutely love that. And
so extra.
Our animals are huge layer of protection for us. I'm not gonna lie, I sometimes low-key get a little concerned when all of my animals are laying on me out of, that's not the normal routine. I'm like, part of my language, I'm like, oh shoot, like, why are you all on me? Well, I know that you woke up.
What am I bracing myself for? What's happening?
Yeah, we have cats and dogs, and we have a big bed, and I have a Great Dane, and his name is Quinn. But the other night I woke up and I was like, Quinn sleeps with us all the time, like in between me and my husband. So there's always like 3 feet in between us. But Quinn lays like the long way, like a human. But I woke up the next morning and I'm like, I don't think I slept. And my husband gets up. He's like, well, Oliver, the baby cat, Oliver was wrapped around your head. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. And then my daughter gets up and she's like, well, I got up in the middle of the night and Marcel, he's another cat, was sleeping in between your legs. And then I had Quinn and I'm like, oh, they must have been on double duty last night because I had like from top to bottom, like protection. And so, yeah, animals do amazing things.
They do amazing things. And I just, because it keeps it in my mind. I'm sitting here drinking. Yes, I'm a very basic chick. I got my Stanley, but everyone listening, we got pounded with a massive solar flare a few hours back in X2. So, I mean, my head's kind of pounding from it. Make sure to hydrate, get some magnesium in you. And speaking of our pets, our pets feel all of this too. Make sure that they're getting plenty of liquids, give them even some good fruits for them just to help with their nutrients as well during these. I have watermelon. I'm probably going to pound some watermelon before I go to bed tonight. But yeah, so just take care because there's a lot of earth changes. I mean, I know we've already talked about like the astral spiritual war that's going on, and we're having all of these earth changes, these earthquakes and solar flares and all of, these hurricanes. So there's just a lot. There's a lot going around. And I mean, we did this Halloween special. I would just love to get y'all's opinions on this. This has actually been the first October where the energy doesn't feel like it normally does. October for me is always just very, like, the energy is very heightened. And my energy is off the charts. My connection's off the charts. It's my favorite month. And that's the whole reason why I did Burnt Witches. Cause it's just, I love it. The energy is always so magical. This is the first month. It just feels like it's, it's just, and I would just love to get all y'all's, take on that. Brandy, I'll let you go first.
I definitely feel you. In fact, all day I'm just like, I can't believe this is Halloween. Like, I love Halloween and I love October. It's like my absolutely favorite time, aside from November, because it's my birthday, but we're already in Scorpio season, baby. But I think it's just honestly been this year has been really heavy, and a lot of chaos and a lot of just most people that I know are going through so much, and it's continuous. And so I feel like as the collective, it's just we have this layer of on top of us. And then on top of that, we've got the solar flares. We've got the crazy weather going on. I mean, I'm in Nebraska and it was like almost 90 degrees the other day. That is unheard of at this time. Like, it should be really cold. And then yesterday it rained all day. We don't really get a whole lot of rain. Like, it's been just a weird overall vibe. And I feel like, as an intuitive, it's been really heavy on us, like really extra heavy. Like, I feel exhausted all of the time, no matter if I get sleep or not. When Kim was like, I sleep like a baby, I'm like, I can't stand you. How do you do that? It's just like, and I think maybe Abby, what you had said is we're constantly working. When we go to sleep, we're also, in the spiritual realm, the astral realm, working. So we don't ever feel rested. And it's just extremely heightened at this time. And I don't know if I foresee it slowing down, which just makes me even more tired to think about. So it's like we have to do things to recover from that. We have to do things where we prioritize our health, our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health every single day. Because if not, we will be taken out.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. I mean, for what it's worth. Yeah, it has not felt like, a real October, a real Halloween. I mean, I love when we all came on here in black. By the way, that was not planned. I mean, we probably talked about it in, the astral realm, but I just like saw us kind of like walking into this beautiful forest together with these black dresses on and, like our witchiness. And it just made me feel finally, okay, we're in Halloween. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. So
and I kind of want to just pinpoint too on, yeah, it was funny because we all jumped in and we all had black, and it was like, was this planned? I'm like, yeah, up in the quantum, but this is, I love these roundtables because this is what we do. This is especially the divine feminine. We work our best when we come in and we join all in together as a group, because we're literally batteries, 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 and this is how we build and grow and expand and help one another. Women, we're not meant to be solo. We just really aren't. We're meant to be in community with one another. Go ahead, Brandy.
To add to that, because as you were talking about the divine feminine, it really feels like at this time that the energy is calling us to really ground into that deep divine feminine, like that, those, I don't want to call them lower, but like those darker aspects of the divine feminine that have been like buried down. And I feel like we have to continually go there to kind of like renew our energy instead of like, being up here. It's like you have to really, I don't know why I want to like growl into some of those more deeper, darker aspects, because I feel like right now is a time of also balancing that within ourselves.
Well, I go deep into the ground with that too. It's been rising for months for me, Brandy. Like, it's just like this, like bringing in this sacred divine femme, this sacred wise woman, that sacred energy, that earth energy, that groundedness. And the reason why I want it, like, we go down into the ground is because we're pulling back up memory, because we used to be that. And like my hand is like like really anchoring that in and calling that back into us, because we've returned.
Yes.
It's just us remembering. We're not new. We've just returned, and we're returning back to that oracle voice, that wise woman. And that takes shifting in order to embody that and embrace that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I also feel like we crave the ancestor energy. Like, we crave it, and I feel like that's where the digging comes from. It's like we want to dig it up and, like, I don't know, embody their energy and like make us more powerful with their energy because their energy is still alive. I don't know. I just feel like it's so deep rooted. I don't know. It makes me, I don't know. Brandy started doing it and then Abby did it. And I'm just like, I just want to go dig a hole somewhere. I just want to go in the dirt. But I was gonna add to what you asked Brandy about how this month has felt. And honestly, I miss this whole month. I have literally had COVID for 3 weeks. And obviously you can tell I'm sick still. I have been sick with a sinus infection for the last week. This is the only thing I've done all month.
Yeah.
I've taught my classes, but like I have not showed up. I have been laying down trying to get better. So for me, I feel the same way. The weather has been weird. I live in Colorado. I didn't mention that earlier. We had our first snow last night. It's just a little tiny bit, but we had snow, so that was exciting. But I forgot it was Halloween this morning when I woke up until I went on Facebook. I was like, "Oh God, it's today. Today's the day." But I was gonna say that, hold on, excuse me. I feel like the connection with our spirit guides and our loved ones, like our past loved ones, is super strong right now for me. I don't know. Does that make sense? It's like the energy is just kind of like Brooke is saying wobbly.
I definitely
Wobbly. It's this and that, but I feel like my connection with my dad this month has been really, really close. I called on him twice and he showed up twice. I called on him and he showed up. He showed up, he showed up, he showed up. And that's all I'm going to say about it. That's all I'm going to say about it, because I will bawl my eyes out. But it's just very cool. So at least I've had that this month. And I just feel like I just want to send this message out. If anyone is trying to speak to a loved one who has passed, maybe do it tonight, do it tomorrow. See if they come in. See if they can ask them to show you something. Show me a sign. Show me show me that you are here. Show me that you are here. You may feel arms around your neck. You may feel your hair move. You may find a penny on the floor in front of you. You may find a feather. I don't know. Like Abby, you may see, a light fixture moving, or a light flicker, or a weird sound that you haven't heard. Just ask for a sign, and see. And if you don't get anything right away, just keep asking throughout the day. They'll show up. They'll show
Yeah.
up.
They
Yeah.
will. Sorry, I was looking around when you were talking about your dad. I'm like, I need to pull a card. I need to pull a card, and my cards are usually right here, and they're not. So, so I'm so sorry. That's what I was doing when I was over here. I was listening, but I
It's
wanted to
fine.
pull. So Daryl just asked a wonderful question. So how do we all feel about wild animals like birds and other pets, like people's pets, showing up at your house? I have been having, so for the past week, there is somebody's cat that has been coming to my back door between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., driving my indoor cats insane. But of course, me, I go outside and I'm trying to befriend the cat. But we've been having deer come right up to our back, right past our steps. We have deer and we have fox. We have all these animals coming in. And I always take it, spirit absolutely talks to us through animals all the time. And each animal have a different meaning attached to it. So I'm going to let you guys add in how you guys view this.
Well, you were actually just, Abby's, going directly to the thoughts that I was having in terms of like when I see something like that unusual. There's certain things that I actually will look for. I will intentionally look for my spirit animal when I'm just out and about, because once upon a time I was like, I really I want to know what my spirit animal is. Before I knew what it was, I would just ask, and it took a while before I really got a clear answer. So so that is something when I'm out and about, I'm just very mindful of, because that's just sort of the magic of the intuition and being connected to the other side and those higher levels of consciousness. But if it's not my spirit animal and I'm seeing something, whether it's Daryl's asking a wild animal or a bird or someone else's pets, I'm always looking for the message or the meaning. Like, what medicine are they there to deliver? Where is the message? Is it the random squirrels that are drawing your attention? Right now, there's squirrels all over the place, but when we get kind of pulled in and it's drawing us in and it's completely getting our attention, where all of our focus is there, wherein lies the message? The squirrel, it's gathering, maybe it's protecting, it's storing up for winter, whatever it is doing. And it's like, how is that being reflected in what I might be going through, or what message is there that's going to mirror back to me, either something I'm missing or something that can help me that I might be going through. So, I love spirit and nature medicine. And again, I look at it like medicine. And so that's kind of what I do. And I tend to kind of like, this sort of piggybacks off of, but even Kim was speaking to earlier, like I used to live in a very fearful way when I was younger, because of just circumstances growing up, certain things that I was exposed to or around created a lot of fear in me for a very long time growing up. And it had nothing to do with the spirit world at all. It was just from the human condition. But going through a massive healing journey, what came out of that is me, is learning that we can have we can invest our energy in things that we can't see. And is that going to be faith and love, or is that going to be fear? And once I chose and I learned to kind of go, let's get out of the fear and stay in faith and love, I sort of operate like that most of the time. That doesn't mean I have my highs and lows, but in terms of the spirit world, in terms of when I'm sleeping at night, in terms of like when animals are showing up, I look at everything as light. I don't invite the dark. I don't choose to seek it out. I don't choose if something feels extremely uncomfortable. I don't kind of go, oh, let me dig further. No, that's when I was like, no, we follow the light. That's where I like to stay, because where there's light, there is love, and love is the most pure form of consciousness. And so I choose to stay on that side of things. So again, nature is from Mother Earth. Nature is connected to the highest consciousness, the higher consciousness. We are all interconnected with it. Those are the messages I want to receive. Those are the things I want to pay attention to. If it's something that's making me fearful, I really try to catch myself and kind of go, oh, we're tapping back into fear. How can I circumnavigate that and get out of it? Because I want to rest peacefully at night. I want to be able to work with spirit without being fearful of the other entities that are there. They are there. I was going to say I never have. Once did I have an experience with what felt like something very dark, and it was not that long ago, but maybe 5 years ago or so. And it was really when I was using my gifts more and really opening up more, even publicly, about my gifts and using them. And I remember sensing it showed up in my dream. So in the astral, it showed up, and I was terrified the next day. I mean, terrified. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why it was there. And at one point, within a very close proximity of time, I was actually in my own space here, and I actually could sense it, like it was here in this room, in the corner. I had come through the room and the lights were off, and I was like, it's in the corner. And I was absolutely terrified. And so at the time, I had two very good friends before these ladies came into my life. A couple other two people that were really helpful to me in that period of growth. I asked them what they thought, and I trusted their instincts and I trusted their intuition. And my very good friend, she told me, she says, I think they're there to show you. They're not there to harm you. They're there to show you that as soon as you start to expand and as soon as you start to open up, you have to be very aware of what you're willing or what you might be letting in. And so, like Kim, I tend to operate from a very genuine place of love. My sisters here would know that. I'm kind of like this exposed heartbeat most of the time until you get the feisty Italian coming out. But most of the time, that it's a sense of love that I operate from. It's a sense of chasing the light, finding the light, and wanting to only see that most of the time reflected back to me in lessons. That doesn't mean I'm vibrating high all the time and I'm not in my dark, the dark dips like we all do. But again, I just choose not to invite and try to give my energy to something that is not of the vibration of light and love. So like Kim, high vibration, I look at it like, if it's not within the vibration of light and love, that's not where I want to place my energy, because where we put our energy, where our focus goes, energy grows. So I try not to put my focus into the fear. And when I do, or if it's starting to kind of things are getting out of alignment, I usually have my friends that are able to kind of go, you're fine, you're okay. They can kind of guide and intuit and coach me back into like, oh, I'm just out of alignment right now. But I look at things like that. I look at things like the animals as messengers, and it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. It's the way I choose to kind of walk my path now. And it reminds me, not me personally, but it reminds me of those Disney images of Snow White walking through the forest and all the animals are talking and coming out and congregating because they're being drawn to the light. They're being drawn to what's natural. They're being drawn back to like what's whole and pure and good. And I know that's an ideal, but again, that's just kind of how I think of it.
Yeah. You know, I mean, one of the signs that we're moving into this higher vibration as a planet in general is that the animals, wild animals in particular, are coming in closer to us and they're not having that same level of fear. Like Brookie added in the comments that she has had 2 chipmunks that have taken up residence on her back porch, and she has rescued a baby squirrel with a broken leg just a few weeks ago. So, you know, just pay attention. You know, sometimes these animals are coming forward absolutely to come and ask for our help and how we can aid them. And, you know, and they've also been noting around the world that cross species of animals are helping each other out as well lately. And that's been a beautiful phenomenon to be able to witness. So Daryl, thank you so much. I hope that we answered that question for you. Thank you so much for asking it. It's very timely because we are seeing an uptick in all of that happening around the globe and around the planet. And it's animal medicine. I recommend to anybody, if you want to find out your spirit team, your animal spirit team, very beneficial. I work with mine as well. So, so before we close, because we're getting to that hour and, you know, that 90-minute mark, I would love for each one of us, because we're going to get back to the, you know, the timely, just want to share some paranormal stories. If we want to share just, you know, like one more experience or event that you've had that has just been interesting for you in your life. So I'll give you one example. We've been talking about spirit, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you a Sasquatch story. So I was up in the woods in May, and I was up in Grafton, Illinois. I was at a conference, but we were up with a small group of, there was 3 other individuals. Noelle was there. And it was the first night. Actually, I'm going to share very quickly. Sometimes when you go into areas, it's good to remember to ask for permission to come into sacred spaces, because just like living spirit, these are living beings and it's their area. We're coming into their home. So, but the second experience that I had the second night, I was hearing a song, and I do toning. So I just started belting this song out into the woods that a Sasquatch was singing. And when I stopped toning, the Sasquatch started toning back almost me in finishing out. And then we continued to do like tree knocking, and they will mimic the sounds of wild animals to make you feel almost more comfortable. It's very playful. And so, you know, when we would knock like 2 times on a tree, then they would vocalize an animal sound right back and answer. But so that was one of the neatest experiences for me to tone into 1 a.m. darkness of the forest and then hear a Sasquatch tone back to you.
Very cool. That's so cool. I love that. You love that story.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go next since I'm talking?
Mhm.
I don't know how much voice I have left if I start coughing really bad, so I'll make this short and sweet. When we lived in our old house, it was very active. There was a lot of spirit activity. And I always heard my son's plastic building blocks, the mega blocks. I don't know if you remember those, but the sound of those, it was ugh. I don't want to hear that sound anymore, but would hear them clanking together in the middle of the night. And they would be upstairs in the loft, and I would hear it. And my husband, he's like, "What is Jackson doing playing in the loft? It's, 1 in the morning." And I said, "I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like it's him." And so, long story short, we would hear it and hear it and hear it night after night after night. And our son was young. At this time, he was probably 6 or 7. And maybe 6. And he said, Mommy, he said, a little girl keeps coming into my room and wanting me to play with her, and I'm tired. And I said, "Oh, what does she look like?" And he said, She has long black hair and she looks really, really sad. And I'm like, oh, I said, what does she want you to play with? He said, my blocks. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, maybe you need to tell her that you can't play with her because you're sleeping and that maybe she needs to find another place to go play. You know, find her people, find her, I don't know what I said, find her family or something like that. I said, so next time you see her, just tell her that you can't help her, you can't play with her, and you want her to be free and go back with her family or whatever I said, something like that. He's like, okay, I'll tell her. And I'm thinking, right, a 6-year-old's really going to repeat this, No, no kidding. 2 days later, Jackson comes to me and he's like, Mom, I told that little girl what you told me to tell her. And I'm like, you did? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, what did she say? He said she didn't say anything. She just kind of smiled at me and then she just disappeared. And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's amazing." And he's like, "I think she's gone." And I'm like, "Good." So I said, "If anyone else comes to you and you don't wanna play with them, just tell them that you can't play and that you send them on their way to their family and you just wish them happiness." He's like, "Okay." And that little girl never came back. We never heard the blocks playing again. We had other things coming in, believe me. But, that was the end of that. So I love that. I guess the point of that story is be open with your kids because it's really, really important to normalize their weird, um, even though they're not weird, but it's different. So it's really, I feel like really important to normalize this that we have, this magic that we have. So they grow up feeling comfortable with who they are and know how to talk to the spirits and deal with them and interact with them on a safe level. So I'm done because I'm going to cough, but thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. I love that story. Brandy, you are up next.
Oh goodness, I don't even know. Like, I wasn't even thinking I was going to go again. So I wasn't even thinking. But I will say this. So my son has a relatively new cat, a black cat. He's tuxedo. He's adorable. His name is Finn Gumbo. And he is like, he'll come sit on my chest and just purr. And the healing that I feel from that is I've never experienced it before, and I had cats before. I have had cats before, but I don't know. There's something different, and he's learned how to open the doors. So you see, like the door handles, he can get into any of the rooms. He knows how to open the doors in and out. And so lately, I have been hearing him throughout the house at night because they like to go crazy at night, and I'll hear my closet going. And I'm like, Finn, stop it. And it'll do it a little bit more. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, just at my wit's end. And so the other night it happened and I finally got up because I was like so aggravated. He's not there. He's sitting next to me on the bed. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like maybe it's not you. I'm like, okay, go away. Whoever you are, go away. Finn, come sit on me. Come purr. I need some comfort right now. But I will say, in cases like that, and I had a friend that's a medium. We came into it together. She had a severe tragedy that kind of opened her world wide open. And she told me this. And so I'm just going to kind of end my little part with this, is that when her world, her spiritual world, everything, her physical world, everything was blown wide open, she was experiencing so much from spirit that it was frightening. And one night she felt, like Lisa, that dark presence in her room that kept coming closer. She was terrified, like absolutely terrified. And she said, B, people call me B, she's like, I just started praying. And it wasn't that she was that religious, but she's like, I started praying the Our Father. I just started praying. Every time I prayed, it backed up. And so she said, when I would stop, it would come forward again. And so finally, she got to a point where she prayed enough that it went away. And she said, immediately I had like a realization come in that that was actually my own fear. Like it was like a test of my own fear. What are you afraid of? I'm going to show you, I'm going to mirror, you know, what is going on inside of you. And so I thought that was really cool. So it may not always be what we expect it to be. So be open, ask questions. And if you don't pray, positive affirmations, calling in the angels, calling in your spirit guides for protection, all of that, your intentions behind it work. So use it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I'm not going to put anybody else on the spot, so only share if you guys want to.
I'll
Okay.
share something fun. I don't mind. Just more fun, a little bit lighthearted. I was on a road trip this summer. I think everyone here knows that it was sort of an impromptu road trip that I was able to accompany a relative, a cousin of mine, along with on the road. And this is a cousin that I did not grow up with. She grew up on one coast. I grew up on the other coast. So we did not grow up together. So essentially, we're related strangers in many ways. And we have been building a relationship over the course of the last 2 years only. So not a very long time. But she is aware. She is aware of this part of me. And she is very honored and gracious with being a part of just watching how things happen. And so we made a stop on this road trip, and we were in Durango, Colorado. And we were walking down the old main street in Durango, Colorado, which is historically, even if you don't know where that is or what Durango, Colorado is, I didn't, because I had never been there. But as soon as you pull in and you get in the main street, you know it's old. It's a historic old mining town from the late 1800s. And so as we were walking, just, that was where we were stopping that day or that evening. And as we were walking down the street, I noticed this incredible building. It was, 3 stories. The architecture was old. And as we walked by it, I just paused because I was like, ooh, it's palpable. I mean, I was across the street and on the sidewalk, but the building was palpable. That's how I describe it. I could feel what's pulsating off of it. And that doesn't mean negative. It just means it's got a lot of energy in it and around it. And so I just stood there for a minute, and she noticed that I was standing there looking at the building. And I told her, I said, yeah, that building, I can feel it. She said, really? I said, yeah. She goes, that's where we're staying tonight. Okay. She had never told me, and she actually had intentionally booked it knowing, I guess she had looked it up or had heard or whatever. So, when we checked in, and she said, you know what, go play, go walk around, go do whatever it is you do. And then she went to the pub that was a couple doors down. And so I kind of did what Abby was saying. Like, I'm there in their environment. I'm there in this old place, kind of going like, what's the story here? Right? What's the story? Who's here? Is there anyone that, that wants to say anything? I just kind of lean into their space, but you could definitely feel the energy coming off the building. And each room, and most of the rooms, many of the rooms in that particular hotel, there's names on the doors with the old guests that often stayed there. And so I was very intentional about not looking anything up. I didn't want to read anything. I didn't want to know anything. I just wanted to stay the night there, have an experience, and then look things up maybe the next day. And so when we did stay in the room that we stayed in, there was 2 antique chairs. When we walked in the room, she said, which bed are you taking? She goes, oh, I'm taking this one. She asked without asking. And so I thought, okay, no problem. So the bed that I was sleeping in had 2 old antique chairs next to them. And I thought, just they didn't feel ugly, they just felt palpable to me. And I thought, okay, whatever might be here, you just stay in your dance space and I'm going to stay in my dance space, and we're going to sleep well and all is going to be fine. And at some point in the early morning, I was like, there is a man reading a newspaper, just sitting in that chair like this with his legs crossed and his paper, just reading it. And I was like, I noticed you there. Like, enjoy your morning. I'm just going to fall back asleep and you just mind your business and I'm going to mind my business. And so when we got up that next morning to go, we were cleaning up and getting ready to get back on the road. I asked her how she slept and vice versa and this, that, and the other. And I never told her anything. And she goes, I don't like that chair over there. And she literally was making reference to the same chair where I had seen that man. He woke me up. I mean, he didn't intentionally wake me up, but I could sense him and it woke me up. And that's when I actually noticed him. And so later on, once we checked out, and after for a little bit farther down on the road trip, I actually looked up the name of the man whose name was on the door of that room that we stayed in. And it was actually a businessman who had a lot of success at that time, but he was African-American. So he was a businessman that had a lot of success at a time when normally that wasn't common. And that was one of the things that he used to do. So it was just kind of like one of these fun, spooky, scary kind of like paranormal things for Halloween that I thought I'd share. But sure enough, yes, this was a businessman that used to stay in that room. And he took his work very seriously because he was very successful and became very successful for what he did. But because he was African-American, and at that time they didn't have those opportunities. And so there was that gentleman sitting there in that morning reading his paper. And even though my cousin is not as intuitive and gifted in this way, she hangs out and she starts to pick up some of the things that I have noticed around me. So it's a lot of fun sometimes.
That's great. I love that story. I love it. I love it. Does anybody else have anything to share? Are we all good? Noelle, Becca, anything? You good?
We're good. I mean, I could tell stories all night long,
Okay.
but for time's sake, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank all of you ladies so much for being here. All the viewers at home, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed just a fun evening of sharing some mediumship, living spirit stories, also some great tools and tips to protect in the astral. We are still in the middle of this spiritual war. So take care of yourself, bodies, and energy. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate you. And happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby. So good to you, girls.